they'll spend the money.
Yeah.
It's about the communication.
I mean, that kind of goes with, for leadership and readership, we deal a lot with brand building
Hmm.
and financial literacy. So when you talk about marketing and people just purchasing things because if they have the money or if they believe in that product, they'll buy it. But
Right.
in actuality, how do we become more intelligent with the things that we do buy
Hmm.
in terms of financial literacy?
Right.
Like if we see a nice car and we try to put that on credit or we
Mm.
pay cash out for it, how do we determine what is the value of what we're actually purchasing?
Well, it's about understanding money. It's funny that we're having this conversation about money. I'm by no means a financial expert. Let me just make that clear. Now, I do understand money.
Hmm.
I just spoke to me and you were just talking. I just thank God, was able to purchase a home um, and that was through discipline and understanding finances and understanding my finances and my family finances. And I was having this conversation with a younger gentleman who was kind of just starting out. He's 23 years old, and he was asking me about credit and different things like
Mm,
that. And I was saying to him, um, credit is not money, if you can understand what I'm saying.
yeah.
So credit is not better. A better way to put that: credit is not your money.
Mm,
That's a better way of putting it. Credit is not your money. Credit is a loan.
yeah.
Somebody's loaning you money
Mm,
and saying to you, uh, when you buy this, it's going to cost you more than the actual value of what you paid for.
yeah.
If that car cost you, l- let's just say $20,000, right? When you pay, if you put it on that credit card, like you said,
Hmm.
it's going to cost you more than the 20,000 that
Right.
you paid on it
Hmm.
because you got APR and
Exactly.
interest and all that good stuff. So it's going to cost you way more. And then the loan that you're getting. So he was saying, well, if I get a $2,000 credit line, that's I could spend that $2,000. I was like, actually, no. Uh, you actually don't have $2,000. You have 30%
Mm.
of 2,000.
Ooh.
That's what you have, right, to spend. Because if you spend over that, then your credit score does this.
Right.
So long as you stay in that pocket
Hmm.
of 30% or less, and you pay more than your minimum, you should be okay. Your credit should do this, because that's what we want. Because if we want
Right.
to, because if you go into, that, dealership, then they're going to be throwing cars at you because they're
Right.
going to look at your credit like, well,
Mm.
okay.
Mm.
And just like, credit cards and different, everybody's going to be sending you credit cards because your credit score is like this. So
Right.
people are going to be throwing money at you
Right.
as opposed to the other way.
I try to figure out how to explain that to a lot of my students. I'm a financial aid advisor,
Right.
and a lot of times I get into conversations about student loans.
Hmm.
And I try to figure out how to put this in a nicer way without hurting people's feelings. But
Yeah.
the reality is, there's no nice way to talk about money.
No, no.
So,
You got to be straight. You gotta give it to them straight, no chaser.
right.
Yeah. So they can understand. But you want to break it down, just like I broke it down to him.
Hmm.
Really understanding what he has.
Hmm.
Because in most people's mind, if just like with that, credit that credit limit example, they believe that that's all that money is theirs,
Hmm.
right? Or else that all that money is there to use for them,
Yeah.
and it actually isn't.
Like even the students that I tell, look, if your balance is 500,
Hmm.
if you have some way to pay that instead of taking out a student loan,
Hmm.
you might be
Yeah.
safer to pay the 500.
Yes. I'm
But a
at.
lot of times they
Yeah.
want that refund check
Yeah.
and they just automatically assume that that's my money.
No,
No, it's
it
not
is
your
not.
money.
If you
It's
have to
not your
pay it
money.
back to somebody, it's just like, and you got to talk to them like this. It's just like if somebody lent you money. I mean, like your mom or your dad said, "Look, I need this back by whenever."
Right.
Right? It's the same
Concept.
concept,
Yeah. Mm.
right? So it's not your money. Your
Yeah.
money, you don't have to pay back because it's yours.
Right.
You know?
You're a teacher.
Yes.
What kind of teacher?
I
What do
teach.
you teach?
Well, I teach social media. I also teach video because my background's in film. I went to film school.
Okay.
I was one of the ones who was the disciple of Spike Lee, John
Ooh.
Singleton.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to be when I went to Brooklyn College.
I saw NYIT on there
Yes,
somewhere.
I have a master's in communications.
Okay.
So I was one of those ones that said I'm going to go to Hollywood and make movies,
Okay.
and that didn't happen. So
So, what was the detour?
well, life was the detour, which
Okay.
which wasn't necessarily a bad thing
Okay.
because you know one, I did get to write, independent films. As I said before, I started out, writing plays and different things that nature. So I didn't totally not get to do some of the
Right.
stuff that I wanted to do. I just didn't get to Hollywood, not yet, anyway,
Not yet,
not yet.
but the night is still young.
The night is still young. So, that's fine. And I didn't know how much I enjoyed teaching
Mm,
until I became an entrepreneur and I
mm,
started teaching other entrepreneurs about marketing. And I actually got hired when I was starting out with my business by a organization called Project Enterprise.
okay.
They were in Harlem. They are much smaller now. They're just in Brooklyn. But at the time, they had really grown. They were like almost in all five boroughs.
Wow.
And what they were was a micro lender. So they would lend, businesses starting out small loans, 1,500, whatever.
Right.
Um, and the actual founder was I don't remember. I think his name is Gupta. He actually started this similar organization that they kind of copied off of in India, and lending some of the vendors that were in the streets of India small loans to be able to start, their little businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
be able to sell. And so they did the same concept when they came to America, and they started out in Harlem doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, make a long story short, they would have small businesses come in. They, pay like $20 to learn how to, do uh, a financial sheet, a profit and loss statement,
Mm-hmm.
cash flow statement,
Yeah.
um, and I would teach them how to do some of these things. And because I also was a part of Project Enterprise. So eventually, as I my business grew, they wanted me to teach others. So that from that, I got the love of teaching. And so now I teach in Yonkers. I also, I'm a substitute slash communications teacher.
Hmm.
So, I can teach anything. I've taught math, which my mother think is kind of funny because when I was in school, math and me were not friends.
Right.
So, you
So now
know,
you're teaching it, and
yeah,
she's
I've
like,
taught math,
"Okay."
English, and I also teach, communications and video and social media and
Nice.
stuff like that.
Why do you think that there's a fear of being an entrepreneur, of owning your own? Or there's like this stigma of like, for some reason, a lot of people would say, oh, you should start your own business, but
Right.
they won't be there to support.
Well, I think it has to do with culturally.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to speak from the experience of, being an African American male, coming from the inner city, and growing up in an environment which is, what I talk about a lot in the book, Opportunity Knocks, in an environment of poverty, and hardship, and people only seeing practicality when it comes to go to work, or if you get a good city job,
Mm-hmm.
stay there for 30 years, and that's the path that's going to lead you to middle class. And for a long time, that for some, that's true, because I had family members who got into the MTA and different other city agencies and were able to do better for themselves,
Right.
middle class wise. But now, in the time of automation,
Mm-hmm.
that is not necessarily so.
Mm-hmm.
You're more likely to be laid off or your job cut, or through jobs moving overseas or different
Right.
things of that nature, than back when I was growing up, and when some of my family members was
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So it's different now.
Yeah.
So I teach my daughter, who is now 19 and in college,
Mm.
to have multiple streams
Mm. Of
of income.
income. Yeah, that's wise.
So yeah, you got a job. Okay, so also have a couple of properties.
Mm-hmm.
Invest in those stocks over there,
Right.
and have a couple of businesses on the side too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's smart.
yeah.
That's smart.
Because if you think, oh, well, I'm just gonna sit in this job and I'm gonna be good,
Right. Yeah.
maybe not.
And some jobs you're just a number.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, they come in. What happens then when they say, you know what, we no longer need your services.
Right.
Now what?
Mm.
If that's the only income.
And now you're like a starving unemployed person
Right. And who wants to go through
right.
that? I've been through
Yeah.
that, and it's not sexy.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No. So tell us about your second book.
Opportunity Knocks.
Mm-hmm.
My American Dream: Becoming a Successful Man is a memoir about my life growing up in the South Bronx.
Mm.
Uh, as I said before, it captures the time period between the late '80s up into the early '90s. This is the time where you're talking about the crack epidemic,
Yeah.
but also the rise of hip hop. Where hip hop was actually making money.
Mm.
So some of the people I actually got to watch on television, watching Video Music Box and different things of that nature. For those who are in my age range, not telling my age, but seeing young black men who were making millions of dollars, coming from the area I came from. I talk about in the book that Ronald Reagan, when he was running against Jimmy Carter, called the South Bronx the London Blitz. If anybody is historian, in World War II, the London Blitz was a section of London that was destroyed by bombing, and it was totally devastated. It was a war zone,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what the Bronx looked like
Yeah.
at that time.
Wow.
When I was growing up, you're talking about the '70s, you're talking about burnt out buildings and different things of that nature, and I came up in that. And trying to figure out who I am with the stigma of one being black, being poor, and coming from this area, and somebody saying, "Well, you got to go out and make something of yourself." And how is that possible when I'm in this bubble?
Yeah.
And seeing these guys kind of gave me this, like, there's a possibility there.
Mm.
There's hope.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what the book is about. Growing up, and I talk about my relationship with my father. Uh, my father actually introduced me to the career that I started out in, with the reason why I went to film school,
Yeah.
because that was one of the few things that we were able to do, because he lost his job due to what I said. It
Mm.
moved overseas.
Okay.
So he worked as a machinist in a factory for 17 years.
Mm.
And you're talking about at the time when he was laid off, maybe he was in his late 40s, early 50s. Um, and that job was a part of, for any man who understands that, especially as a man, you're talking about financial, um, being able to finance and take care of your family is a
Mm-hmm.
big deal.
It's like that security.
Yeah, so it's a part of, in at least in American culture, and I'm sure in other cultures as well. It's a part of being a man.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, not in my opinion. You should, because the Bible says, a man that does not take care of his family is not a man.
Mm.
So, but you could take care of your family, but the means in which, or the amount of money, doesn't necessarily make you a greater man than a man who's working $15 an
Mm.
hour at a McDonald's,
Right.
right? That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the amount of money.
Yeah.
Because that $15 an hour man can always build himself up
Mm.
if properly nurtured,
Right.
right? And say, hey, yeah, you could do more.
Right.
But there's nothing, this is a good start. But not, well, you're not a man because you're making $15 an hour and this guy is making 50,000.
Right.
It has to have to do more with the character.
Mm.
And so, going back to my father, when we would go to the movies, and we had this conversations. One of the things that he said to me was, um, being black was like being in second place. So you got that, and and that was like a big deal to him
Yeah. I can
when he said
imagine.
that. And
Yeah.
this is not knocking my dad.
Yeah.
You're talking about a man who grew up in South Carolina from the civil rights, in the civil rights era. You're talking about Jim Crow, and having that put on him. Also, having substance abuse problems, coming from a family where both his parents were alcoholics. He was an alcoholic. So you got all of that.
Hmm.
And now he's having a conversation with his son and saying, look, son, uh, you know, blacks are second to whites from the gate.
Right.
So this is what I'm talking about. You're talking about that being placed on me.
Hmm.
I'm second class to some people that I've never spoken to, because in the South Bronx, in that time, the population was black and Latino. So my friends were either Puerto Rican, Dominican, or black.
Hmm.
So, you know, we're all in this same thing, and it's like I'm sure maybe their parents might have had some similar conversations. Then you have a poor school system.
Mm.
I talk about an incident where I had a social studies teacher who would help us cheat on our tests. She would tell us without telling us the answers to the tests.
Wow.
And I say, she was a nice lady, but maybe she really didn't feel that we were capable,
Mm.
right? So you got all of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Uh,
That's a lot.
yeah, you got all of that, and then now go out and be somebody.
That's yeah.
Really? you
It
know?
it's like all the things stacked against you,
Yeah,
basically.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Do
I
you
wrote,
you talk about all of this in the book?
I do,
Okay.
I do. And I wrote the book for, a kid coming up like me,
Yeah.
or, a man who is maybe feeling a certain way at this time, wanting to feel like you don't have value,
Hmm.
and not, and I try to talk about in the book finding value within yourself, because I'm a millionaire not because of the amount of money that I have, is the way I think, because
Mm.
that's where it starts.
Yeah.
We know plenty of people who pulled themselves up, and with help and support, but who have pulled themselves up, and it starts up here.
Hmm.
you know Not necessarily because you came from certain means. It's harder, but it's possible.
Yeah.
So the book is a way of kind of giving hope.
Do you feel like you write to escape everything that has happened or is happening? And do you think that things have changed from the time that you were younger to now? Like, do you see a big difference?
Well, I used to write for escapism,
Okay.
and that's also the reason why I went to movies too. I used to go
Oh,
to movies all the time by myself. Once my pops passed away.
okay. Sorry.
Um, you know, so when I would go, that was my means of escape. And I used to write for the same. I used to write poems and different things that make for that reason. And even when I wrote choices, um, it wasn't necessarily a means of escape. Is It was again wanting to tell, just like I felt like when I was watching, the guys who were coming up in hip hop, who were telling our stories.
Mm,
I wanted to do the same thing with writing.
yeah.
Tell stories about people I don't see and hear enough about,
Mm,
because they're relevant too.
yeah. You have a powerful story,
Thank you.
and I can't wait to read the books that you have published. Where can people find this book that is published as well?
You can find Opportunity Knocks right now on Amazon. You can download it on Kindle. It will be out on Google Play, hopefully, crossing our fingers,
Oh, then,
in the next 5 days or so. So those are the places you can get it right now.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, you have a few things coming up,
Oh
so
yeah. So I have a book tour coming up on October 12th. We're going to be at Kalbar Imports up in Harlem. That I used to live in Harlem about 20 years. I love Harlem.
where in Harlem?
135th Street.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
were probably like 3 blocks away from each other.
Yeah. So we were neighbors.
I was on 131st and Frederick Douglass.
Nice. So I was on 135th and Frederick Douglass.
Nice.
And I lived there 20 years. My wife, my daughter, and I, we all lived there. Uh, and so Harlem is my home.
Yeah.
Besides the South Bronx, of
Yeah.
course. That's where I started.
My
Uh,
grandmother's still there, St. Nicholas Projects.
yeah. So I love Harlem because Harlem, as you well know,
Yeah.
is a city amongst itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I have so many friends and family from that area. So I gotta go back home
Yeah.
and share this story with them because they're going to be excited about it, and I'm going to be excited to see them. So it's going to be at a Calabar Imports. That's on 2504 Frederick Douglass Boulevard.
Nice.
Anybody who knows Harlem know where that
Mm-hmm.
is. So come out. We're going to be there from 2 to 4. That's on a Saturday, so there is no excuse.
Some people have excuses. I said the
Yeah.
same thing just now. I'm like,
Mhm.
I was interviewing Frank and I was like, look, he has an event and it's on a Saturday.
Mhm.
No excuse. Wake up.
Yeah, and I mean, you're gonna come out. You're gonna, see family, friends. Also, gonna be doing a seminar because I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel it's fair to, just bask in my glory. I want to teach people, so I'm having a seminar on how to write your own book.
Oh.
So I got some of my,
Wait,
expert
when?
friends.
When? I want to be there.
Yeah. So October 12th,
Okay.
2 to 4, at Calabar Imports, 2504. Frederick Douglass Boulevard.
And I have a flyer, so I'm going to post that
Yeah.
on at @NikkiMarie_radio.
Yes.
Where can people find you
You can
and
find
learn
me
more?
you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm under Derrick Guest the Storyteller, of course.
Mm,
On Facebook and Instagram, those are my two favorites. So you'll be able
okay.
to find me very easy on there. I also have a Facebook page, dedicated to all of my book and different things of that nature.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. October 12th. I'm
Mhm.
definitely going to be there.
Yeah.
I
And
really
we're
want to write
also
my
at
book.
Sister Uptown November 9th, and we're going to be doing the same thing. So if you
November.
missed that one, for whatever reason, Sister Uptown, you should know where that is. That is,
If you don't know, just Google it.
yeah, that is in Washington Heights area.
Okay, cool.
So Sister Uptown is a institution of literary books and different things, and they nurture independent authors. So
Awesome.
that's definitely a place you want to come out to, and we're going to have the seminar again there as well.
Everything that you have is self-published.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
because I
seems like
like owning
everybody's
my
doing
yeah.
that. Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna
I like
say.
owning my stuff.
Okay.
Um, you know, one still when you go through things like Amazon and Google Play. You're gonna get the royalty thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to give you a certain amount of royalty because they're putting it out. They're distributing it. But for, let's say, for whatever reason, like this book, which I think might, in my view, you read it and you tell me,
Mm-hmm.
would make a good movie.
Mm.
So if for whatever
Hey, there are
reason,
some independent film artists out there.
yeah. So if somebody comes and
A
say,
lot of them
hey,
are on my page.
look,
So,
if some of you guys come to me and say, look, Derrick, I would like to option this.
hmm.
I can't if I didn't own the book, I can't, go back to, my publisher and say, is it okay?
Shout
No.
out to those independent film directors. I
Yeah.
know y'all watching.
Hmm. So, ownership is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, final words.
Final words. One, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart.
Mm.
People who want to start, whether they want to, independently publish their own books or start a business franchise, this is not for the faint of heart. And I say that because it is difficult to be an entrepreneur. You have to almost be crazy.
Mm.
I mean, a little bit,
And
a
don't
little bit
sleep.
off,
Yeah.
because I mean, life in itself is not a guarantee, but you're talking about, possibly, this not working out and you could end up sleeping in your car,
Yeah.
or worse, so that is not for the faint of heart. So go into anything that you do with your eyes wide open.
Mm. Love what you do. Find your passion and
Hmm.
keep pushing forward.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Derrick Guess. Sorry, Derrick M.
Yes.
Guess.
Yes.
For joining me on today's Leadership and Readership Hour. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to reading all of your books and I hope you publish more stuff. And
Yes.
I will definitely be there on October 12th. So
Thank you for
thank
having
you for
me.
sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. I am your host, Nikki Marie. You can follow me on Instagram at Nikki Marie _radio.